Welcome to Behind the Bower. On our podcast, we offer inspiring conversations, a fresh look at arts in our community, and provide spotlights on artists, performers, collaborative partners, educators, and organizations. We want to celebrate the universal expression of human experiences through arts, culture, and our community. I'm your host today, Susan Martin, and I'm Executive Director of Bower Center for the Arts. Over the past few podcasts, we've actually been sharing different ways that the Bower Center achieves its mission of making visual and performing arts available to our community. And we do that through our art classes, live performances, and exhibitions. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about Bower Center's 12th annual National Juried Exhibition, which I have been mentioning in our previous podcasts. And we're going to speak this morning with our juror and judge of the exhibit, Alan TenBusschen, and Alan's passion for the arts, have him share an overview of what makes up a national juried exhibit and its importance of bringing the art to you. So today I welcome artist, professor, and exhibit judge Alan TenBusschen. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning. How are you doing today, Susan?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, well, we really appreciate it. So I just want to start out, obviously, by allowing you to share with our listeners a little bit about yourself, do a little introduction, and then we'll get into our discussion.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. I'd love to tell my students and other people that ask me about my journey. I'm a bit of a late bloomer into the arts game. I always drew and painted as a child and was very encouraged by my family, but wasn't really sure what to do with it. So it wasn't until college that I really started pursuing the arts professionally.
Mm-hmm.
I had some fantastic professors and mentors who opened my eyes to the world of arts and helped me see things that I had never seen before. It was kind of a really amazing thing. And so the moment that bug kind of struck me, I guess you'd say, it was no looking back from that point on. So it's been about, and I always feel weird. I always got to date myself, but it's been about almost 17 years now, I think, I've put in of just straight painting and drawing, constantly looking, constantly observing. I consider myself a bit of a perceptual painter, which means I love to paint and draw from life. But that's not the only way I work either. And so I've also had to work from photo or any type of reference I can get my hands on. I consider myself a figurative painter. I do a lot of portrait. I always tell people this as well, too. I like to paint nouns, people, places, and things, things that are tangible. There's something very fascinating about the tangible object or tangible experience in front of you.
Right.
And so I've been in the position of every single person who's entered this show. Entered numerous shows. I've won a lot of awards from them, which I've been very grateful for. And I've been rejected from a million of them, too, which is part of the process
That
as
is
well,
definitely,
too. So,
yes, definitely part of the process.
So it's always really humbling to be on this side of the process and to be the person who's carefully looking at the work and trying to curate a show out of all of these voices and all of these amazing pieces. And so it's a really wonderful experience to also be reminded of how you can help your community by being a part of it, by judging, by saying yes to opportunities.
Right.
And so this has been a really wonderful experience as well, too.
Wonderful.
Go ahead. Oh, yeah. I was going to say, I say too. And so during my undergrad, I was allowed to teach a couple of courses, run a couple of critiques. And from that moment too, realized that one of my absolute passions with art is teaching art and exploring art with students. And I can say this is without even a hesitation. Like, I've never had a bad day at my job. I've had stressful days at my job, but I've never gone in my job and been like, oh man, it has been unbelievable to spend every day around art and around people trying to make art, people exploring art, people being excited about art, and people being frustrated by art too.
Right.
So that's part of it, but it is absolutely the best thing in the entire world.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I don't know that many people can say that about their jobs.
Oh, I don't, and I wish every semester I tell my students, I say, I only wish this for everyone in this classroom, that you have a job that you can wake up in the morning and go, man, I'm really excited to do this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm unbelievably grateful for the opportunity to do that.
That's amazing. Well, before we move on into talking more about the exhibit, you mentioned, I just wanted to ask you a quick question because you talked about how that you draw and paint life, but that and both live and photo, which is more difficult? Do you find that
Well, I
one's
mean, I would say the obvious one is it's difficult to get people to come sit for you. It's
right?
expensive and
Yes.
it's tough, but so I use a lot of objects and landscape and things like that as well too. There's and as I think too, I think there's really merits to both.
Hmm.
And I'm going to quote. There's a fantastic painter, Alice Konevsky. He's a figurative painter. I believe he was based in Philly. I think he might have moved recently, but he told me in grad school that it really doesn't matter as long as you get a good piece out of it. He
Hmm.
said you shouldn't worry about how you get there. You should worry about the piece. And if someone from or painting from life's what you need for the painting, then go for it. If it's photo, then go for it.
Right.
Um, but I will say too, it both has its limitations, and I think too, advice I give to almost every painter who works from photography is, and the same from life as well too, is those are both starting points.
Hmm.
Like your job isn't to just replicate exactly what's happening in front of you. Your job is to perceive that, interpret that, and move past that too. Because, and I don't want to throw any photographers, but we have photography. If you
Right.
need an exact replica of that, take a photo of it. That's fine. That's a fantastic medium for that. But painting and drawing is, how do we introduce the artist into the medium? How do we introduce your perspective and your ideas or your emotions into that to
Right.
push it past just a representation and into a piece of art?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We just at the Bauer Center, we just wrapped up I think it was a 4-week class. It was live drawing, and like you mentioned, we did struggle a little bit to find the models for it, but we were able to get a different model each week, and we're hoping to offer more of that because that's something that we had not done at the Bauer Center before. So, the artists that participated really enjoyed it.
That's fantastic. And this is a plug for the Bauer Center, but in any place in the world, if you can get in for live figure drawing, take the opportunity.
Hmm.
It's such a wonderful experience. My students will laugh if they listen to this, because I always tell about my first couple experiences figure drawing, but how nervous I was and how scared I was. And then the second you get into that room and you're with a model who is willing to share with you in the class their body for your art education,
Right.
it almost becomes this really interesting sacred space, and you are so focused on getting things right that everything else melts away. I
Yes.
mean, that the time melts away. I'm sure if you were there, how long you're like, oh, that's been 20-minute pose, and the model needs a break. You're like, I
Right.
just sat down and started drawing. It's been 10 seconds. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's such an amazing thing, and it is one of the greatest things you can do to help speed up your process, but help you start to slow down and really observe and perceive things as they truly are.
Right. Right.
And what a magical experience it is, and what a gift it is. And I always say this too: thank you to everyone out there who is a figure model. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is a
Absolutely.
wonderful thing, a gift to give to artists to let them understand the human form and anatomy.
Right, right, definitely. Let's jump in to talk a little bit about this national juried exhibition. Explain to our listeners what a juried exhibition means, and then maybe how you came about becoming the juror and judge.
Oh, okay, yeah. So a juried exhibition, it's a scary thing seemingly for an artist, but you submit your work generally blind to an open call. So generally an art center or a gallery will have an open call for entry with some, generally some rough requirements, the size or how many you can submit.
Hmm.
But you will submit your pieces, your voice, and a juror will be selected. Somebody generally from outside the art center
Right.
will be selected as somebody to curate a show. And so what that means for the juror is that now they have to go into this show where there is literally hundreds of pieces coming from hundreds of different voices all over. especially with this show at the Bauer Center. It's a national show, so it's all over the United States.
It
so there's
is.
hundreds of different voices with different ideas, different concepts, different narratives, different styles of painting. All of that kind of comes together and gets thrown at you. And then your job as a juror is to go through, and this is the key, and this is the hard part, but it's the key, is to go through as objectively as possible. And what that means is I need to put aside the things that I like and put aside the things that I'm doing in my professional practice and look at the artwork as it is presented to me. And
Right.
so I want to take a look at, are the design elements, are you hitting this? Are the compositions great? How are the colors working? Looking at it as a piece of art, just objectively as a formal critique.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got to go through again and say, well, how does this fit with these pieces next to it? And you've got to start curating a show that is cohesive through hundreds of different voices.
Right.
And that's where it becomes really tough to say, oh, sometimes this piece needs to be curated out. It's a really great piece. And I would say there's a lot of pieces in the show that were fantastic, but you've got to curate it out because it doesn't quite fit with the voice of the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll start to see, as you're a juror, you'll start to see a theme or a narrative present itself as you're curating the work. And you start to go, oh, okay, I seem to keep hitting this note again and again. I'm going to start looking for work that kind of reiterates that idea, that concept.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I probably rambled on past your
No,
question a little bit too. But,
No, it's great because we get the questions all the time when guests come in to see the exhibit. Is what goes behind selecting these works, and so that is wonderful information that that it seems that a narrative or a theme appears as you're looking at all of the entries, and that you're looking at it to curate a show. I honestly myself had never thought of it in that way.
Yeah, and I would say too, like when I was on the other side of the fence as an artist, I always I don't understand why this painting got kicked out. I think my ego comes in. I think it's a better painting than some of these other ones in the show.
Yeah.
And that was a conversation I had with a gallery director a while back. And I was, well, it is. Your painting is better than this, but it doesn't fit with the narrative or the theme of the show. And you're like, but the show's whatever. It's it's open. It's but it slowly emerges, and it's something where artists will talk about this, and sometimes you'll have maybe the general population will kind of be like, oh, what a weirdo. And art starts to talk back to you, and it sounds very weird, but you'll start looking at pieces and you go, and you're working on a piece or a painting, the painting will kind of say, I think I need a little bit more color there. And it sounds really odd, but you're like, your brain is kind of starting to create a conversation. And it's the same when you're during a show. You start noticing things and you start becoming more aware and more perceptive of, oh, these notes keep hitting again. And it starts to become a little bit more like an orchestra, or you're creating a composition where you say, oh, it needs a little bit more in the horn section, or it needs a little bit more in the flutes over here.
Right.
So let's grab some of those pieces and put it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had an experience in grad school as well, too, for those in the jury show who did not make it in, that I shipped a piece out to England for the BP Portrait Award. And I was so ecstatic to be in that position, to be in I think it was the final round of judging.
Mm-hmm.
And it cost me well over $1,200.
Oh my
to ship
goodness.
a piece over there. It was so, and I was in grad school, and it was like, I've been eating macaroni and cheese and ramen noodles for weeks, and it was like, okay, got to get this out there. This could be a really big deal. And the piece got curated out at the last minute.
Oh, no.
I got a really wonderful email. I got a wonderful email from the director of the National Portrait Gallery in London. And it was, we really love the piece. It's exceptional. It's fantastic. Doesn't quite fit the new curation of the last little bit. It's a little too modern for what we're putting up.
Right.
And it broke my heart, but at the same time, it gave me a really nice, what I'm doing right now, it gave me a really nice go, oh, okay, I understand that now a little bit more.
Yes.
It was bitter. I was upset, but it was also something where I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. And now that I'm a juror, I see that a little bit more. Where I'm like, oh, it hurts. It hurts to say no to somebody because, and this, and this is one of the Bauer Center's missions, is to bring arts to everybody and
right.
to invigorate the arts and make people go, yes, this is great what you're doing. So it hurts when you have to say, yeah, it doesn't quite fit with the show. But also I think that softens the blow a little bit too. It's like, it doesn't mean your art's bad, and it doesn't mean that you're not good at what you do.
Right.
It just means it may not have fit with the theme that emerged.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. So how difficult, because we had 64 artists that submitted 200 works of art from 10 states from across the country. And you were able to curate a show of 62 works of arts by 41 of those artists. How difficult was that?
Oh, it was so hard. And I mean, what I will say too, and this is, one of those things like the artist submitted fantastic photos of the work, which makes it so much easier. And it
Mm-hmm.
is so much different to see them in person, but it took me days. I kept having to go back to that Dropbox and open it up and look through it again,
Right.
and open it up and look through it again. And that's something that I talk to students about, and I talk to people when I juror as well too. Is like, my mood changes, my ideas shift. Maybe I see a different narrative the next day than I did the first day, and there's still those formal critique elements where I'm like, that's a great painting or that's a great piece of art.
Oh no, did we lose him? Okay. Well, we lost Alan for a moment, so hopefully he will call back in just a second. While I'm waiting for him to call back in, I will mention that we will be having the awards reception for this National Juried exhibit on Friday, June 14th from 5 to 7. The reception's open to the public. We'll have light refreshments, some live entertainment from some local youth musicians, and guests will have the opportunity to meet Alan and many of the artists and also hear Alan's remarks regarding the award winners of the show. So we want to invite everyone to come out for that. So we're going to get Alan back on here. Alan, I was just mentioning the reception, so let's jump right back
Oh
in.
yeah, yeah. Say, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, but
That's
I
okay.
apologize.
It
But
happens.
I'll say, like, it happens. So, but it's too, like, so, you come back in and you look at the work again, you look at the work again. And even when I had selected, I think I had selected probably 100 plus,
Hmm.
and then it was time to curate again and curate. And that's when the show really started coming together. So like I picked about 100 plus pieces, formally critiqued it. I'm like, these are great pieces. I really love these pieces. And again, I'm going to say these are really great pieces subjectively to me
Right.
as the juror, where I'm looking through the lens of myself. That doesn't mean the other pieces were not great. It just means when I'm looking at it, I see something in that I say, this needs to be up on the wall.
Right.
And then once that started happening, it was the next step of, okay, how do I curate a theme or a show out of this? And so
Hmm.
that's where it cut down to a little over 60 pieces.
Right. Right.
And, it's that thing too, where I look at that and I went in and saw the show again to juror the awards. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a nice show that feels cohesive. There feels like there's a theme coming through. And so
Right. Right.
that's really what you're after when you're jurying a competition like this.
Right. And can you share kind of what kind of theme you felt like was coming through with the show?
Yeah, there was this really wonderful kind of theme of nostalgia, a little bit of home. There's
Hmm.
a lot of really personal experiences happening on these canvases, but there was this really wonderful current that I just saw of life and vitality and people's personal histories coming through.
Hmm.
And so I spent a lot of time looking at the work, and there's a few that are pretty obvious about personal histories. I think there's one about a kid with a sucker stuck in his hair that,
Uh-huh.
if you're a parent, you probably know that experience pretty well, some candy stuck in the hair. But seeing, these wonderful pieces about areas that people know, objects that people love, places people have been, portraits of friends and family. There was a really wonderful theme and humanity and connection that I
Hmm.
really, really saw and started to really curate towards that.
That's wonderful. So the judging, what kind of process do you have when you're coming to actually see the show in person? It's been curated, it's on the walls, and now you've been asked to judge it. What does that look like for you? And, kind of what is your process when you're actually viewing the work in person?
Oh, perfect. So I had, I've had the Dropbox files for a while, and I'd actually gone through a few times and thought these are the ones I kind of think are contenders for some of the awards. And so I had actually had a list in my mind already going into the show of, like, okay, these are the ones that I think have kind of risen to the top that hit compositionally, narrative, and concept wise, really pushed. Even a lot of these two technique wise too, and really pushed the bounds of what I saw as really excellent work. But that can all shift the second you walk in and see a piece in real life, because the photo from the computer doesn't quite show the texture, doesn't quite show the scale. You don't have quite the same experience as standing in front of a painting. And all of the artists in out there in the world will understand this. And I hope, the general population will too. But you see a picture in a book of an artwork and you're like, wow, that's really cool. And then you see it in person and you go, wow, I had no idea. I can speak to a Mark Rothko painting up in college and art history courses. I'd only seen Rothko's reproduced at like a 1 inch by 2 inch in a art history book. And then when I was in San Francisco at the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco, I remember my art history teacher, pushing me in front of a Rothko and moving everyone away and said, stand there for 3 minutes and then come talk to me.
Right.
Because I've been hassling. I'm like, I don't know these paintings or anything really. They seem really kind of, they're these tiny paintings. And to stand in front of a Rothko and be bathed in this color and to just have these wonderful layers and layers and layers of paint built up and all of this absolutely amazing energy poured into a work. I sat there and almost teared up at that painting where I was like, I get it now. I understand it. I didn't get it in a picture form. I got it in person. And so that's part of the judging process too, is coming into the Bauer Center and seeing the show, which was hung amazingly. It was such a great show to walk in. And I love that space in the Bauer Center so much. I love being able to traverse all the different floors and into the different galleries. And each gallery kind of has its own special spirit and feeling to it. And it's really a wonderful place to be. And so I would go in there, and I went in there and I spent time in front of every single piece. Before I'd had my idea of what I think, kind of left that on a piece of paper.
Right.
I had it on my computer when I came in, but I left my computer in the other room, and I'm like, okay, now it's time to just go in and come in fresh. I've had my ideas. I have what I thought. Now it's time to put that aside and come back and stand in front of the pieces and really look.
Right.
And so I went through the galleries and spent time in front of each one of the paintings and really just started to kind of internalize a little bit. Okay, I can see what they're doing now. I really love the way this is put together. Oh, that color didn't quite come together as well in the photo as it is in reality. And so I started to really, really spend time looking and engaging and letting the paintings kind of talk back to me. And it was interesting because there were some pieces I had really high ranked on my, I think they should get award. And I don't think they ended up with awards. The judging kind of jumped in a couple of different places where I was like, ooh, I thought it might have been this work, but it's actually this work right here. This is a really great piece. And I think Amy, I had to hassle Amy because I had to bounce. I kept bouncing back between a few pieces as well, too, where I'm like, these are so great. And I think I talked to Dottie and I said, we need like 1,000 more awards. So I can just give everybody awards. There's so many great pieces here.
Right.
But the experience of seeing it in person and standing in front of it, and the artwork has a presence, it has a life, and it has an intensity that when you stand in front of some of these pieces, like they demand your attention. And that is a very good sign of a piece of work being an exceptional piece of work. I love the term arrested motion, where if you're walking past a piece and it stops you in your track, it arrests your motion. That's a sign you might want to spend some time with that piece. And there are some pieces in the show that I remember walking and going, oh, wow, what a great piece. I need to hold still right here and spend a little bit more time with this piece.
I would have to agree.
And so, yeah, and it's tough. I'm just going to say that too. It's tough. It is always really tough because the more time you spend with each piece, the more you start to see the artist. You start to understand more about the concepts. You start to read into the painting more. One of the terrible habits we tend to have as art viewers is we give each painting about a half a second and then we move on.
Right.
You give a painting, and that was why that art history was like, you spend 3 minutes in front of this thing. And that was it felt like a long time. And then after about the 2-minute mark, I could have sat in front of that painting for an hour, but it took a while for my brain to kind of turn off the rest of the world and really engage with the work. And I would encourage the people attending, coming to the show at the Bauer Center, slow down and spend some time with this work. And you're going to be really blown away when you start to notice these little tiny details that are happening, or these little moments, or the quietness of some of this work.
Right.
And you're going to start making these connections, and you're going to start seeing why these pieces are in the show.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that experience. And I actually then would encourage our guests. The show is also available to view on our website. And it would be really
Mm.
neat to have the guests actually view it, the images, kind of much like you did when you were during the show and then also before you came in to judge it. And then kind of pick their favorites from there and then come in and actually view them in person. I think that would be a really neat experience. So I'm glad that you shared that.
I think that's a fantastic idea, Susan, too. I think that's always a great, and it's so great. I love looking at art. I encourage everyone to do as much as humanly possible.
Well, we're going to start to wrap up. I just want to tell you that we're extremely grateful and thankful for your time, not only for today for the podcast, but in during the show, coming in and judging it. And I know I am, and everybody else is looking forward to the reception on June 14th and hearing your comments in person, getting to see the art again, meet with some of the artists. I think it's a wonderful experience, and we're just very appreciative of your time.
Thank you so much, and I am so honored and grateful for the opportunity. And again, I mean, I love looking at art in any way I can get it, and it is always an honor and a pleasure to be the juror of a show and to help curate something. I'd love to end on a little note just for the artists and those out there listening
Mm-hmm.
that it is so important and it is very scary, but to show and exhibit your work, it's a vital part of an artist's journey. When you present your work out there, it gives you a platform to share your experience with people, allowing your unique voice to reach a broader audience. Sharing your work not only grows yourself personally, but it also grows your artistic process, and it allows you to invite new people into your work that can help give you new feedback. And it can help refine your skills and help broaden your creative horizons. It's really an amazing thing to do this. And I will, to tie it all up with a bow, exhibiting art contributes to the cultural landscape.
Mm-hmm,
It
definitely.
inspires and connects others on an emotional and intellectual, an empathetic level. Showing your art transforms that myth of the lonely artist or the solitary endeavor into a shared communal experience, which enriches both the artist, the viewer, and the community. And the Bauer Center is a hub for that in Bedford, Virginia, and we are so grateful to have that institution. And I encourage all of you out there listening to share your work, submit to these shows, come down and take a class at the Bauer Center, expand your horizons, and develop a community of arts. And it's the best way to be an artist. And in my personal opinion, kind of the only way to succeed in the arts is to build that community.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. That was wonderful closing. I appreciate that. And we're going to kind of end on that. I want to remind everybody the reception for the exhibit is June 14th, 5 to 7 p.m. It's open to the public. And then the Bauer Center for the Arts for coming in and viewing the exhibit. We're open Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday and Saturday, 11 to 3. And we're open on Fridays, 11 to 5. I will remind all of our guests that are our individuals that are listening today that we are in the midst of summer art camps. Those do take place until 1 o'clock and they are kind of going on throughout the building. So if you want some quiet time to look at the exhibit and reflect, you might want to come after 1 o'clock once the camp ends. But we're open 11 to 3, so you can come at any time and also be immersed in some of the youth that are participating in our summer art camps at the same time. So once again, Alan, thank you so much for your time. I want to remind everybody listening to visit our website for up-to-date information and to register for classes, concerts, and be on the lookout for our calls for artists that will be coming up at the end of the summer for next year's exhibits. And again, thank you for joining us. This was Behind the Bauer.